It's football and other. Man, that always trips me out. Because I don't know if they hear the echo, but
They do not.
Well, I hear the echo.
Yeah,
And
I hear
it always trips me out. But hey, it's football and other F words.
Yeah.
And today's episode is Sanders a Shedeur thing.
Look at you.
That
You're so
is a
quick with
pun
it.
on so many levels that you guys would not even be able to comprehend it. Kind of like Cam ward off evil spirits of the Tennessee Titans. It's beautiful.
You're good at this, man. You're good
It's
at
beautiful.
this.
Am I professional or what? Let me retweet this thing real quick.
That's what I'm trying to do, too.
I had to go 104.5 the zone. It's usually on mine, so I had to go.
I went to yours first, and it
know.
wasn't there, yes.
Had a little technical difficulties, and I think Jackson navigated them very well. So
Jackson's a pro.
could have been the guava seltzer that he had. Was it pomegranate
fruit.
guava?
Passion fruit guava cider. It was excellent.
It was. There you go. It wasn't even a seltzer; it was a cider. So we had a little get together, a little team powwow, team building.
Yeah, I don't know if it was on purpose, but we did it. We got a few adult beverages flowing.
So that's why we were a little late. Just had to make sure that everybody was taken care of and everybody had a good time and all that kind of stuff. All right. So I know we're going to get to Shedeur Sanders. We had a whole episode about Cam Ward. We're not spending any time about Frank Gore. By the way, this is Football and Other F Words. And I'm Zach Lyons, your host. At these Zach Lyons on Twitter, Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons, 1 to 3 p.m., Monday through Friday. And then we got Stoney Keeley at Stoney Keeley, stackinginbox.com, Soberos Network. And I guess, do we call you this? Is this real? Do you want to be called a draft expert?
It's the same thing I told RK Dub Monday morning. It was like, my lawyer told me, don't ever call yourself an expert in anything because then people can't sue you. So there's a part of me that's like, no. I can't be an expert. I'm not an expert on anything. So I don't.
Not even Yankee Candles. You're not even willing to go that far.
I don't want anybody to sue me for being like, this guy said this. This guy said Autumn Woods is the best Yankee Candle.
Yeah.
I got it. It sucks. I'm taking his ass to court. I don't want that to happen.
Easton Freeze is saying the Hot Read podcast schedule around here, which is referencing the notorious
We're late.
Hot Read podcast, which is always late. And then it makes you wait through a 4-minute, intro music thing. Whereas what's different is that I told everybody we were going to be late.
Yeah, that's true.
So I said roughly 6:30 p.m. So I know it's 6:40 p.m. when we start going live. So I always leave myself an out. I don't keep people hanging around without telling them what's going on. I'm a communicator. Some may say an expert communicator.
We knew what was causing the holdup. We were off on that drink.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, and we got Eddie. He goes, you don't want to spend the whole episode on Jackson Dart? Maybe that's next week's episode, Eddie. Don't rush us.
I got to finish the Jackson Dart tape. I'm trying to see what people see in him.
Okay, so we got Kill You Pariah on Twitch, so you can't see this one.
Oh, we're on Twitch. I didn't.
Yeah,
even
we're
know
on
that.
Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook Live, baby.
Didn't even know that.
He goes, "What's up, Pop? First time viewer. Typically listen while driving for work." And then he follows it up with, "Don't know why Pop got added. Shaking my head." So first time in the chat. Failure for Kill a Pariah.
That's all right though. Welcome in.
We'll accept Pop.
Yeah. I mean, I'm old enough, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm going to be 39 this summer.
Yeah. I'll be 40 this summer.
We're old enough to be pops.
Yeah.
I'm a cat
my
pop.
dogs call me Papa. So there you go.
I ain't going to get into who and who doesn't call me Papa.
Well, they call me Big Papa. All right. So either way, let's do this. Let's go through free agency.
Okay.
Because I know it's the rumor season. It's Lions season.
I mean, free agency is going to be here in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's going to come
It's
before
crazy.
you know it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what she said.
I was going to leave that alone because I don't know what we can say on here, but.
Well, we're just going to be a little loose tonight.
Okay.
And that's also what she said. And so I look at it, and until I get Jackson screaming in my ear, you stop. I'm just rolling with it.
All right. That works.
So here's where I'm at. It's obviously Lions season, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But this is such a unique quarterback situation for the Tennessee Titans, but also a unique quarterback situation league-wide.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers already open to discuss situations with other teams. He has been officially let go by the New York Jets today. He can't sign anything.
1st?
Well, that has been speculated but not been confirmed.
Not confirmed. Okay.
Then you wake up in the morning and you see that, the Steelers have called on Trevor Lawrence and they have inquired about him, which makes sense. They probably have called on almost every quarterback situation league-wide.
Mm-hmm.
And then several hours later, and we were talking 6 to 7 hours later after the initial report goes pretty much viral.
Yeah.
That's when you start hearing, the Steelers never called. And I'm thinking, okay, well, that's you've gone past the statute of limitations. Like,
yeah, for real.
It's cemented in it.
Yeah.
This is someone either from the Jaguars or Steelers trying to, do some damage controls because something got leaked. Pretty obvious. If you wait that long to counteract a report, because that's like an instant kind of thing. Like, snap your fingers. The Steelers didn't call or the Jaguars aren't entertaining the trade, which is not – this isn't really anything about Jaguars. It's all about the Steelers.
But they haven't committed to a quarterback. Like, whose feelings are they trying to protect by, like, silencing this?
Maybe they don't want people to know that they're this desperate.
Oh, maybe.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you're calling on something that you really don't think is going to happen. Because, I mean, like, are you really calling the Jacksonville Jaguars thinking that Liam Cohen just took the job with Trevor Lawrence and is going to be like, yeah, let's fucking just trade?
Yeah. Well, like maybe they called Kansas
and they
City.
Go,
Duval. Maybe they called Kansas City, too. Be like, hey, would you guys be willing to trade Patrick Mahomes?
Maybe they did. But, like, that's why I kind of think, like, they don't want people to know they're desperate. Because if other teams with a quarterback situation in flux know that the Steelers are desperate, like that desperate, then they're going to try and put them over a barrel.
Yeah, you could take advantage of that if you knew that information.
So that's why I think the Steelers side is trying to lie.
But do we think they actually called Jacksonville?
I absolutely think they called Jacksonville.
I do too.
I mean, you don't put out a counter argument or I guess counter reports 7 hours later if you don't if it wasn't a little bit true. Because you know what you're debating? Do we actually say something? Do we leak something that this isn't true, or do we not?
What do you think about this? The prospects of this trade if you're Jacksonville, because
I wouldn't do it, and I don't. I don't like him.
I've never been the biggest Trevor Lawrence guy, but
you don't do it.
But you don't do it because I said this. I don't know if I've said this publicly. I know I said it in DMs. Like I don't think Jacksonville's roster is really all that far away. Like I said that today. I don't think they're in a position to be like, we need all the draft picks we can get. Like you've got the quarterback, you got Brian Thomas Jr. You need to reshuffle some things on your offensive line, some things on your defense, but your roster's really not all that bad.
No, it's really not unless John Robinson gets a hold of it. So I look at it like this as well. It makes sense for Omar Khan, the general manager of the Tennessee Titans, who? I wish, for the Pittsburgh Steelers, for those that may not know. And it makes sense for him to kick around all the tires, right? Yeah. Even like it makes sense to call on Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
And here's why. New coach, no GM, it doesn't feel like they're that far away, like you said, but also like maybe they like someone in this draft class.
Yeah.
So it makes sense to call. It makes sense to call and talk to every team outside of probably like the Chiefs, the Bills, the Ravens, and all that kind of stuff. And maybe you still put a few feelers out there, but they are in win now mode.
Well, that's what I was about to say. Like you look at that roster, and
the Steelers roster.
It really is like, man, if you had some elevated quarterback play, you'd be
they
cooking.
made it to the playoffs with fucking Russell Wilson.
I thought whenever Russ was in his prime with Pittsburgh, he went on a pretty hot streak there.
Yeah, he was slanging it.
And I kind of thought, like, man, this is like a championship caliber team that nobody is talking about. And then
Russell Wilson ended up being Russell Wilson.
Shit went sideways, and here we are.
So in that, Albert Breer, in a couple of different articles, has essentially linked Matt Stafford and Pittsburgh Steelers over and over again.
Which makes sense.
It makes total sense because the Steelers have picked number 21.
Yeah. Which
you give that up straight up for Matt Stafford, I'm in on it.
Yeah,
like if I'm a Steelers fan, I'm in on it.
You don't have a lot of urgent needs on that roster. So
right.
You can afford to part with that first-round pick in exchange for a quarterback like Matthew Stafford.
So it makes sense that that's out there.
Yeah.
On the Titans side of things, obviously Matt Stafford has a ton of connections.
Yeah.
With the Tennessee Titans. Maybe not a ton, but a lot with the Tennessee Titans.
It's there.
It's there. Here's the thing, is that when you start diving into the numbers and the feasibility of getting a trade done, it just can't connect. I cannot connect that logic. At that point, if you're the Rams, you're like, oh, well, the Titans over here are going to offer me their second-round pick, and then you probably got the Steelers or another team with a first-round pick that are probably willing to do some business.
Yeah.
So, like, unless they're going to take that second-round pick, and even then, you're going from, in this particular situation, because Matt Stafford is worth a second-round pick.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Matt Stafford is not worth the first overall pick. So what are you doing team building wise after that? Because you have no second round pick. You have no third round pick. You obviously want to get out of the first round pick. But if you trade for Stafford, everybody knows you want to get out of that first round pick. So to me, it's just like all the little things just do not work in the Titans' favor to get this deal done. Because if you were to trade the first overall pick to the Rams, then you need Matt Stafford, Cooper Kupp, who's probably worth what, a fifth-round pick?
Yeah, at least.
We're going to talk about Shedeur, Amber. Just chill. We're getting there. So when you start factoring in all the little, like the players involved, like if you were to, Matt Stafford is probably worth the 20th overall pick.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Cooper Kupp's probably worth a fifth-round pick. You still need like 1,500 value points somewhere to make up for what the first overall pick is. So it just never makes any sense. There's apparently some serious audio problem. It's not coming in our ears here, and you can clip that off if you want. Do you have an audio problem in your ears, Stoney?
No, everything sounds business as usual.
What about on your end, Jackson?
What's my name?
Jackson.
I like it.
They're getting every 10th word from me, I think. Same. Sound is choppy. Everybody's making the same complaint. Now, it's a YouTube one. All the YouTube people. That's all we got right now. Apparently, we need subtitles as well.
So we just have to craft our sentences so that every 10th word makes sense.
So is Stoney...
Yeah, am I coming through?
Twitch sounds good, apparently. So maybe this is a YouTube thing.
Maybe.
So, Stoney, I'm going to let you talk. Entire take gone. There we go. I'm going to let you talk. No, some other people are saying it's fine. This is very interesting.
Wow.
The haves and have-nots, apparently.
Mystery is true detective on football and other F words tonight.
So I am currently listening on YouTube, and I can hear you both fine.
Okay.
Okay, everybody refreshed it, and it went away. So there you go.
That was Google trying to get us.
Yeah, the Googles are after, because I'm looking at our audio levels over here. Everybody's saying it.
We can see our audio levels here?
Yeah, I can see it over there on my screen.
Oh, well, I can't.
You cannot.
I can't.
But I can.
I see this sign that says we're on air.
That sounds good to me. So everybody, if you're having audio problems, you need to refresh it. Apparently this happened a couple weeks ago, too. I think I remember a similar situation. Went out, came back in. It's fine now. YouTube problem, yep. So there you go. Sorry, YouTubers.
Yeah.
Either way.
Matthew Stafford.
Probably not going to happen for the Tennessee Titans. I would be very hard-pressed to find a scenario where the Tennessee Titans can land Matt Stafford and everybody walk away relatively satisfied. Because there's always a winner or loser in the trades, but relatively satisfied.
What else would they have to package with the 35th
like their
overall
2
pick?
third-round picks and future picks, too. I mean, like, we're talking like it's a haul to get up to the first overall pick for the L.A. Rams, even with Matt Stafford and Cooper Kupp included. which does not sound right.
Yeah.
But when you start talking about the value of the player in relation to draft picks, yeah.
Huh. I think it's going to be really difficult to make that work without parting with some serious draft capital. You and I have talked about it, looking at the Rams' needs and thought, well, could you ship them L'Jarius Sneed?
Yeah, that's a possibility.
Rams might need a cornerback.
Yeah.
Could you package that and do a trade, not a one-for-one thing, but maybe the second and L'Jarius Sneed? Does that compensate fairly for Matthew Stafford?
Yeah, I would say it would.
Yeah.
It'd probably barely get it there, but it would.
So then you're down a second-round pick, but you don't have the quarterback need, and we're thinking Cheeto and Jarvis Brownlee running at cornerback. I mean, that could work potentially.
Yeah.
You might have to throw in one of your day 3 picks to sweeten the deal. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here.
Not to turn this into a Rand Carthon thing, but I go back to the video of the Rams trying to trade up. And, they're calling everybody. So the Titans were not the only team to do this.
Yeah.
But the Titans never countered. The Panthers ended up calling back and countering with an offer that netted them a future second.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying, I just want to say this, and this just popped in my head because we're talking about trade backs and everything, is like business people always counter.
Yeah.
And the fact that they didn't counter at all, probably, maybe another reason that
maybe
it led to all that.
Maybe.
All right. So I got a question for you, and this comes from Ed Henry on the YouTube chat.
Shout out Ed Henry. Love
Ed Henry. Scenario. Callahan wants to quarterback at 1. Bergonzi wants to accept trade back offer. Who wins? Okay. Do they not give the coach what he wants? And no, they do not.
I don't think Brian wins.
And I do not think they should. I mean, they should not. Right now, I mean, this team is bigger than one quarterback.
Yeah.
And you need to go with what's best for the team, not what's best for the coach. Because you got a future to think about. Because, I mean, right now, the odds of Brian Callahan being the coach are so low in 2026 that to build around to make Brian Callahan's opinion matter the most in the room makes no sense from a team building perspective.
Well, yeah, I'm
not saying you completely always go opposite of what he wants. You make the best football decision.
Yeah, I think you're in a situation where you have to get the best player possible to help your team. And that might not necessarily be the quarterback here.
And it might not necessarily be Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter in a trade back. I mean, you may land one of those guys in a trade back, but there may be a really good trade back that you cannot pass up because you're going to get the belly of this draft is really good. And that is, your second, your day 2 to day 3 picks.
Mm-hmm.
The first round is kind of like it's just a fucking wild mess.
Yeah. I think it's complicated because we also kind of feel like this front office isn't necessarily married to Brian Callahan.
Yeah, there's nobody in this office nobody in the front office that has a job security that is linked to Brian Callahan succeeding.
Yeah, so I don't know. It just kind of makes me feel like he's going to be the odd man out in that circle. Like they're just going to pick the player that they think can
you should pick the
team.
Player that is best for the team.
Yeah,
for the franchise health.
Mm-hmm.
That may be a quarterback. It may not be.
Well, and
but you got it, and it may be a different quarterback than what Brian Callahan wants.
To be fair, though, it could. We're assuming Brian Callahan wants a quarterback. He might be on the same page with, hey, let's go get Abdul Carter, and then we'll go sign
And my thing is that these are three smart football minds, right?
Yeah.
So I said this today. Brian Callahan, Chad Brinker, Mike Bergonzi are three smart football minds with a myriad of years experience between all three of them.
Yeah.
I am very skeptical that all three are going to watch the same tape, watch the same game, sit in these meetings and read the scouting reports and not come to the same conclusion.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's very rare, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's what the whole conversation has kind of been around from Mike Bergonzi. It's very rare that there's these instances of tiebreakers and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever conclusion they come to is more than likely going to be the conclusion that everybody came to.
Yeah.
Now, lately, maybe that's not been the same thing, but like Mike Vrabel and Arthur Smith wanted Isaiah Wilson. What did John Robinson do? Went and got Isaiah Wilson, and guess who got fired for getting Isaiah Wilson? John Robinson.
Yep.
So
future Jags GM.
I would be very cautious when you are hired for a job, giving power to other people for a job that you were given power for. Does that make sense?
Do the job yourself.
Do the job yourself.
Do the job you were hired to do.
Do the job you were hired to do.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Aaron Rodgers. You can't bring him into this locker room, right? I mean, we're talking about a locker room where there are a lot of young and up-and-coming leaders, but not cemented. Like Peter Skoronski, J.C. Latham, those are kind of like leaders for the offensive line, but they're not necessarily leaders for the team quite yet.
Yeah, yeah.
You get what I'm saying? Like, you can't bring Aaron Rodgers in here.
Can the locker room withstand that?
No.
I don't know, but I mean, when we start talking about what it's going to take to give up to get Stafford, we don't know that Derek Carr is going to become available. I mean, how far down the list do we go before it's like, okay, well, maybe Aaron Rodgers is all that we have? Is Aaron Rodgers an upgrade over Will Levis?
Yeah, well, I mean, like that's.
Do you?
I mean, you may be an upgrade over Will Levis. I haven't seen you. I technically I've never seen you throw a football. So
really, there's a video of me throwing a football.
Is it a bit or is it you actually throwing a football?
Well, it was a bit, but I actually threw the football and then was like, "That's the best throw I've ever thrown in my life," and I just happened to catch it on video.
Well, it's also probably better than a throw that Will Levis has made.
Maybe.
So. I can't say that you're technically not a better option than Will Levis right now.
So do you put up with the as our friend Eddie has dubbed it, #Team Toxic? Do you put up with #Team Toxic for the upgraded quarterback play?
Yeah, and Eddie says Aaron is toxic for a lot of reasons, but actual locker room there hasn't been stuff about me. And Garrett Wilson just tried to freaking request a trade because of Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
We heard Deshaun Elliott tried to get out of it. We saw that that Aaron Rodgers wouldn't even go to camp with these young wide receivers at Green Bay.
Yeah.
Like, you got to call a spade a spade. He may not be like trying to, have sex with everybody's girlfriends and try to murder people or anything, but he's not a positive force in the locker room.
Yeah.
He's a negative force.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you think the players really feel about him going on and trashing everybody but himself?
I'm just curious, like, if stuff starts going wrong with him and Calvin Ridley, like, what is that dynamic going to be like?
Maybe they'll, do a weird thing where they take each other out. Like,
I don't know.
Yeah.
But I do think it could work, as I tweeted on Saturday, because if they bring back Nick Westbrook-Akine, which I think they should.
Well, huge locker room leader.
Nick Westbrook-Akine is like the Justin Jefferson of Allen Lazard's.
Yeah, that's true.
So Aaron Rodgers, maybe that's the pacifier to him.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, we got Nick Westbrook-Akine.
I like that Eddie is also #Team Toxic, but also wants to preach about Aaron not being toxic in the locker room.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just kind of like it. And Jake Robertson says, if that's the option, just give me emo Andy Dalton instead. Jake, I would just like to say this. it's time to put the phone down during the mock drafts. If you're choosing Andy Dalton over Aaron Rodgers, which I'm going Aaron Rodgers over Andy Dalton 10 times out of 10. I'll just fucking take the pain of it all. But we got to put those.
I would too.
Got to put those mock drafts down. All right.
Do another one, Jake. Do it. Do another one. Post it right now.
Post it right now.
Tag Zach in it.
Okay. I look at it this way. Aaron Rodgers and young talent and a young roster do not mix.
Yeah.
Can Aaron Rodgers mix with a strong head coach and a strong veteran presence on the roster? Yes. It didn't really work with the New York Jets, but I think that it wasn't the right mix of veteran leadership and players because they were kind of like middle of the road.
Oh, they had such a good roster. The Jets did.
Yeah, the Jets are. But I'm talking about age-wise, not talent-wise.
Gotcha.
Because this roster.
Man, we were talking about that.
Yeah.
Slinging those beers back.
It's bad.
They're fucked.
They're fucked. It doesn't matter. Like, at this point, logically, it doesn't matter if you think Brian Callahan is a good head coach or not.
Yeah.
They're fucked.
It's the question.
Like it's a really big you have to hit on everything in free agency and everything on the draft for it all to go right enough for Brian Callahan to keep his job. And I don't think that's because of Brian Callahan's skill set as a coach. It's because of the way the NFL fucking works.
Yeah, it's just the timing.
The timing of it all.
Yeah. It's like the way I framed the question to you is like if you're Brian Callahan, you're Denard Wilson, you're Nick Holtz, and you're sitting around, like, how can you not look at this roster and just look at one another and say, holy shit, guys, we are fucked.
Yeah. I mean, you are.
If you look at, I think that one thing I'm guilty of is not realizing how far away they were last offseason.
I think that's a Nashville problem.
I made a
Tennessee
joke.
Titans problem.
I made a joke last offseason, like, oh, guys, don't worry. They've got their cornerstone pieces set. They've got left guard, slot corner.
I mean, I remember an episode with me and Easton talking about how everybody else was wrong and how they had such great leadership.
Yeah.
Look at all these leaders they got. I remember listing them all off. I was in an Atlanta hotel room.
Yeah.
Listing all these things off. And then now you look back on it and you gather more information. You realize, man, they were really fucked last year.
They were,
and they're still this year.
I think they are. I think, excuse me. I think they are in a better position this year than they were last year.
I think they all realize,
but I think they have more dire needs than they can really overcome in one offseason.
Well, last year was the best draft and probably one of the better free agency classes to pull talent from.
Yeah,
to help save a roster.
Mm-hmm.
And the Tennessee Titans, truly, good processes. I really will not quibble with any of the processes that they had, but you do see the situations where they kind of got backed in a corner and then they had to make these moves, pivot, and then you're sitting here like, okay, well, this is a worse draft class, theoretically, a worst free agent class, theoretically. What's to prevent it from happening again? And now you're in a tough situation. Like everything had to hit. And I understand that a big part of everything not hitting is Will Levis.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they didn't attack right tackle at all.
Which I remember saying they didn't really attack edge either. And I remember last summer, like sitting there big braining it. I'm like, whoa. What if they passed on an edge rusher because they knew this upcoming edge class was going to be really good and they were just allocating their resources?
And maybe that's the case, but maybe that's underestimating what you have on the roster.
Well, it's not only that, but it's like you can't just ignore edge rush. Like you still got to get somebody
and the fact
there.
that Brian Callahan sat there at a meeting, and I can't remember where they were at, but he sat there at a meeting and said, Arden Key is a situational pass rusher. Because I remember hearing that and being remembered. He gets it. This guy fucking gets it. Brian Callahan gets it.
Football guy.
He understands. He's a football guy that this Arden Key's good, but he's a situational pass rusher.
Yeah.
Now, maybe we could look at this two ways. One, he may have been wrong because Arden Key was the best pass rusher they had at edge. I will maintain that Arden Key was better than Harold Landry last year.
Well, I do too, but I still think he's
that's not a good thing. Yeah, that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
And then they draft Jalen Harrell, and I like Jalen Harrell. He was also their highest-rated RAS, relative athletic score, pick in the 7th fucking round.
Which is another thing I big-brained because I'm like, oh, they must have something far more advanced than RAS.
Well, if they do, it fucking sucks.
It's just RAS is a pretty good metric.
So, like, I look at it and I go, like I said, what I am saying now is definitely because I have new information about how 2024 happened, right?
Yeah.
And what we saw on the field.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really fault them for what they did last year. But if last year was a reset, which is what they said, and what we all kind of agree, then guess what? They got the studs up. And you know what they're doing this year? Tearing the studs down on the house and starting over again.
Like, oh, shit.
This is year one of a rebuild.
It is.
Like, I mean, it really is what it is now. Last year was year one of a reset. Today's year one of a rebuild.
Yeah.
So, buckle up is like what we said.
Yeah, buckle up.
Buckle the fuck up. All right. Shedeur Sanders.
Let's talk about him.
All right. So last week we talked about Cam Ward. This week we're talking about Shedeur Sanders. Next week we'll kind of compare the two, maybe add in a few other quarterback situations. Okay. So, how many games did you watch of Shedeur Sanders? And your scouting report, what do you think it's going to end up being word-wise over at stackingtheinbox.com?
It'll probably be another big one. I don't know if it'll be as big as the Cam piece. I've got the film cut-ups ready to go. It's at 25 plays now, so it'll probably be another longer video. But I think it's he's a really interesting prospect to talk about, first of all. And I think the conversation about these two quarterbacks is so interesting. There's so many layers to it. Fit is so important with these guys that I think it makes the discussion way more fun than last year's quarterback class was.
So, for real quick, what are the games that you watched?
I watched, actually, I can tell you. I know I watched the Baylor game earlier, and I watched a couple of games.
Real quick, hold on. Sorry. And I know Eddie was joking, but Eddie wants to clarify, for the record, he was just joking about Aaron Rodgers.
Okay, yeah, no, I didn't mean to throw him under the bus like that. I did just say it like, oh, he's team toxic. Like, oh, he's for sure.
I said that. You didn't say it.
Okay, fair enough. I watched the Baylor game because he had a 27 QBR in that game, and I watched it, and I've got notes on a different notepad. I don't have them with me, but I took notes. Like, there was some impressive stuff in that game. So it's like he's such a weird prospect because I feel like it's kind of like Cam Ward in a similar fashion of, like, you have to kind of project what he can be, but it's for different reasons. Like Cam Ward, you're like, okay, you have all these mistakes to clean up, but if you can do that, he can be good. With Shedeur, it's like he did some pretty good stuff, but he's constantly fighting for his life in the pocket. So if you get him better protection, get him a more stable run game, better offensive line,
their run game in Colorado was non-existent.
It was awful.
It was terrible.
They basically replaced the run game with screens to just pick up short yardage, which is really interesting. But to answer your question, I watched the Baylor game, the BYU game that everybody slams him for. It's like the Wario of the Cam Ward Pop-Tart Bowl.
Yeah.
Is the Shedeur Sanders Alamo Bowl. I watched the Kansas game, which was a pretty good game from him. The Nebraska game, which is sort of infamous tape.
We were talking about their leading rusher at Colorado.
Yeah.
Can you name the leading rusher at Colorado?
I can't, but I know he's draft eligible. I don't think he's going to cut it.
Isaiah Gustave with 379 yards rushing.
Yeah, that's bad.
You know who the second leading rusher was?
Travis Hunter.
Shedeur Sanders with 305.
That's funny.
That is hilariously bad.
Yeah.
For a college team.
Yeah. I watched Texas Tech, and then I watched the TCU and the UCLA games from last year. The UCLA game from last year is some of the funniest tape that I've watched because he's literally like running all over the place because the offensive line can't block anybody. And he just like randomly turns around and throws these buckets like 30 yards down the field where the wide receiver has a defensive back draped over him. And he's just like, yep, I'm just going to move around and extend the play, and then I'm just going to casually dart this thing down, drop it in the bucket. It's a huge play. And then you don't see that again for like 20 more plays. It's crazy.
How much, and I think JD has brought this up during Cover 2 as well over on the YouTube chat, but like, what do you think of Sanders as far as how much of the screen game do you find that to be a hindrance for what people will look at the stat line for?
I think people, this is fun. Because I think there's some Bo Nix.
Okay.
I've called Shedeur. I'm probably the only person that would be excited by this, but I think he's kind of a slower Bo Nix, physically slower.
Okay.
And that was the thing they said about Bo Nix is like, his completion percentage is great, but yeah, he just throws screens. And I think you see that with Shedeur. It's not just screens, though. There's a lot of like quick out routes. He likes to throw the ball outside the numbers, and people are going to use that to like inflate his completion percentage. I get that from like a base standpoint, but people in scouting, maybe this is a me thing. Maybe everybody else is right and I'm wrong here.
I'm gonna write this question down or this statement down so I can ask Coach Mack about this.
I think people are too quick to just throw away screenplays when they're scouting, because I still think there are valuable things that can be gleaned from a good screenplay. In Shedeur Sanders' case, I think he flashes really good velocity, really good timing. Like those things, when you think about it, you can't run the fucking football to save your life. So you have to hit on some of these plays in order to move the chains. But when you're talking about a screen where you've got to get your left two offensive linemen out to the left, your wide receiver's got to get up and block, and then your running back has to get out to receive the pass. Is one of the designs that they run.
You're right.
You're talking about, okay, two offensive linemen, a blocking wide receiver, a running back, a center snapping the ball, a defense reacting to the play. There's a lot of moving parts that kind of amplify the need to make sure that this thing is timed perfectly. And so I get people say, well, he knows where he's going with the ball. There's no read to make. He's just throwing it 10 yards to the side, and then the running back's making the rest of the play. I get the concern, but at the same time, this play has to flow through the quarterback. And he still has to make sure that he puts the ball out of harm's way, where it can't get batted down, it can't get tipped, can't force a turnover there, just trying to make a play. But it's got to be timed up so that the ball gets to the running back, gets to the player, with enough time for the blockers to get in place, for the thing to get set up, and for him to make a play. And that's where I think, I'm not saying like we need to place more emphasis on screens. I'm saying when you're
don't discount them as bad as people do.
When you're scrolling through the tape, don't skip the plays when you see a screen. Because those things, man, I'm telling you, a good screen is like a work of art.
I got a lot of questions. I mean, Shedeur Sanders is providing us more questions than Cam Ward.
But like you see the offense flow through Shedeur on tape.
Yeah.
And that's part of it. Is like the ball comes out.
Well, he has one of the highest usage rates. So in terms of team rushing attempts and team passing attempts or dropbacks,
yeah.
I mean, he's got one of the highest usage rates in the NCAA, and usage rates is something that the Athletic has deemed as a stat that transfers over to the next go around.
Interesting.
Because you're involved.
Yeah. But that's the kind of thing that I look at and I say, okay, like he flashes good arm talent on those. because those things, like, the ball has to be at a certain spot at a certain time for the thing to work. It's like if it takes too long to develop, the defense is going to sniff it out, and somebody's going to blow that play up. If it gets there too soon, your blockers aren't going to be in place, and it's going to be blown up. So it's got to be timed perfectly in order for it to work, and you have to hit those plays because your run game is non-existent, so it compounds the issue where you can't just hand the ball off and have your guy run it up the middle. You've got to hit these screen plays. They have to be timed perfectly, and Shedeur hits them.
Oh, man, I don't know where to begin because we got so many freaking questions. Okay, let's start off
Chat
the top.
popping off?
The chat is popping off.
You got me off on a tangent about the
No.
the
I mean,
screens.
that again, that's from the chat. The chat got you off on a tangent. So
I think Coach Dan Casey has a book about screens.
There you go.
There
you go, JD. Get you that book by Dan Casey. Okay, so let's start with this. Last night, we got the glimpse, not a glimpse, we got the full video of a rap song. This is his second rap song, according to Jackson.
Yeah.
Terrible song.
If you say so.
Much, well, I mean, I think objectively, if you're auto-tuned out the fucking ass and then you do mumble rap with auto-tune, you should be automatically disqualified from it being called good music.
It's a stylistic choice.
Oh, it's terrible.
Perfect timing was not bad.
Perfect timing apparently is not bad, which is the first rap song. But Life, what'd you think of Life, Jackson?
I didn't think it was great.
Yeah.
I had it stuck in my head all night last night.
So now we got two rap songs.
Yeah.
Not worry you at all? I mean, like that kind of, Isaiah Wilson and all this kind of stuff.
Hey, don't talk about Gigi Bowser like that.
Yeah, Gigi Bowser.
Oh, that was some. I didn't like his music.
Well, I mean,
his music was ass. I'm not even.
Yeah. But like, I don't know. Like that is.
I think he's.
I mean, if you're gonna I'm okay with having side gigs.
Yeah, yeah.
But at least make them good. I mean, don't put out that fucking shit.
It is good.
It's terrible.
It's not.
What's the other one called? Perfect Timing. If you could pull up Perfect Timing, let me know when you pull up Perfect Timing. We'll play a little bit of Perfect Timing.
We will get taken down, Zach.
Oh, we will get taken down.
If you pulled up,
Dion will personally come and slap you.
If you pulled up my Spotify right now, it would primarily
be auto-tuned mumble rap.
Yeah,
I'm very surprised by that, but hey, good for you.
I don't know. I've been on a Sexy Red kick lately.
Oh, okay,
I've listened to a lot of Sexy Red lately.
Well, there you go.
We'll play some on the show.
I mean, I'm looking for Record Store Day. Now we're getting off on a rap tangent. Wu-Tang Clan, all 9 original members are coming back for a Wu-Tang album exclusively on Record Store Day. So I've already been on the research trying to find where that's at. Okay, so there's so much.
Where do you want to guide this thing? Are we?
Well, I kind of like that they're kind of guiding it because everybody has questions and all that kind of stuff. So
I can't keep up.
I'll keep up with it here in just a second. I just need to find where I lost it. Okay. Here we go. Ed Henry. And this is a good question. This is from Ed Henry as well. So that's two questions for Ed Henry tonight.
2 for 2.
Is Sanders helped or hurt by his dad? And if you'll give me a second, let me answer it, and then you can go. I think he's helped by his dad. Now, I could look at this 2 ways. Does it help that Deion Sanders is FaceTiming him during these interviews? Probably not. Probably a little annoying. But I do think that his dad actually helps him in the sense of he knows how the NFL, he's more prepared than anybody else with how the NFL business side works.
Yeah.
He's more prepared because of his dad in prepping his body, in preparation for the game of football. So I lean on the whole dad thing not being as big a deal as media makes it out to be. And actually, I think it should be considered a benefit that his dad is someone that has gone through it. Much like Marvin Harrison Jr. His dad has gone through it. And you know what he did? Picked and, made sure that the certain moments that he was going to do in the offseason were all for NFL football.
Yeah. The way I was going to frame it was, I think perception-wise, like the general public, football consumers, his dad probably hurts the perception of him as a character. But I think in actuality, his dad probably does help him for the reasons that you just said. Like he knows what it takes to make it in the NFL. I think he probably, I'm going to venture a guess here.
Amber 7 agrees. Imagine having a Hall of Fame dad. It helps.
I think he probably did the best that he could to prepare Shedeur for the NFL. I know people laugh at Pat Shurmur, Colorado offensive coordinator. NFL head coaching experience, longtime NFL coach.
Longtime coordinator.
The system that they run, I kind of feel like, again, it's like the best you can muster with the talent that you have. But he's got a lot of NFL people around him, and I think it probably helps him in the long run.
I agree. Okay. So, let me ask you this.
Okay.
Play style comps. No, let me ask you this first. $sign for the S on Shedeur, $sign on the end of Sanders at the S for Sanders. Red flag?
That's a red flag.
Okay, so that with the rap song.
Not the rap song. I like the rap song.
That's kind of carried. That's associated.
I think he wants
that's
to be
his signature,
NFL
by the way.
quarterback.
All right.
I think the rap music is just a side thing.
Okay. So player comps for Shedeur Sanders. And we'll get into more X's and O's, I swear, here in a minute. I'm just trying to get all these questions out of the way. So the reason I bring this up is because we got Geno Smith hanging out there, but the chat, and this is spoiler alert from an Easton Freeze podcast later, that he was given a player comp for Geno Smith. But the chat is leaning Tua. And where do you land? You don't have to choose either of those guys, but where do you land on two things about the player comps? What's Shedeur Sanders' player comp? And do you factor in career trajectory on your player comps, or is it just play style for you personally? When
it's just play style for me.
So if it's just play style, player comps for Shedeur Sanders.
I actually high key love that Tua comp. I think that could be a ceiling, but I'm also a Tua apologist.
Yeah,
as well. I think he's
because if he would have been healthy,
I think he would have been really good. And I think he's always. I think his arm gets a bad rap, too. I think he's good enough to make the throws.
Well, I mean, that's one of the big things Mike McDaniel said was that, like, he makes the hardest throws look easy.
Yeah, and that's kind of Shedeur Sanders. It's like you watch his tape and you're like, this man is, getting run down in this backfield and he still hits this throw, drops it in the bucket. My comp has been it's been Bo Nix for a little bit. I like what reminds me of Bo Nix is how Nix kind of flashed this like just rock steady base where like the feet were calm, the posture was perfect, got a bit of hip drive into his throws, and when he can go through that process, he makes perfect throws. The problem with Bo Nix is that like every game there was at least one play where everything broke down and he just threw the ball anyway, and it was like a disaster piece. And you see a little bit of that with Shedeur. And I think that's the big thing that you've got to kind of iron out with him from an interview standpoint is like, hey, man, how much of this was you sensing what was coming and how much of it was you frustrated, fighting for your life, trying to make a play? Because I felt like that was the same thing with Bo Nix, and I think Sean Payton did a pretty good job of coaching a lot of that recklessness out of Bo Nix this season. And we saw him develop to a point where, I mean, he was at least on the ballot for Rookie of the Year.
Right.
And so I kind of see Shedeur Sanders in the same light. It's like, and this guy flashes some just amazing throws on tape. But there's just a couple of things that you've got to figure out what the cause of it is. Like Cam Ward, like we talked about last week. And you've got to figure out if it's something you can coach with, or you can coach out of him, or you can live with.
Okay, so let me ask you this. This is inspired by Eddie, even though he's not saying this. It's
shout out Eddie.
Inspired a question. Bo Nix came out this year, he'd be quarterback one, right? Easily quarterback one?
To me, yeah.
And you would feel comfortable. Yeah, but I mean objectively, if you were to take his tape that you've already seen, put him at this draft class, do you think even the most NFL would probably put him as quarterback one?
I don't know, man. There's a lot of people that like Cam Ward.
But they don't love Cam Ward. And not to say that they loved Bo Nix, but
I felt like I was in the twilight zone on Bo Nix. Like I was pounding the table. I even said at one point, like, the Titans should draft Bo Nix. Like I was
yeah.
I was pretty even, like he's a top 10 pick. And so I feel like the most of my colleagues in draft media were like, top of the second round. He's not a first rounder.
That's true. But in this draft, that's what kind of feels like what most people say too.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
I would agree. I think both of these guys.
I don't want to get into Max Brosmer, but I just want to let you know that Drew in the YouTube chat says Max Brosmer should be in these discussions. I can't stand the disrespect. And I know you're not a Max Brosmer first rounder guy, but you're a Max Brosmer truther.
I just haven't gotten into the tape. I watched a couple of Minnesota games, watching Ariante Ursary tape. You know, you catch a few strays of the quarterback, and it's kind of like, oh shit, you raise your eyebrows a little bit. I don't want to say anything yet because I haven't watched his tape and focused on him and taken notes on him and all that. But from what I've seen and from people I've talked to, kind of stole the show at the Shrine Bowl, even though all the talk was about Kyle McCord, and I'm kind of on board with it.
Okay, so let's go through this. I think the thing for me was Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward, and maybe we're getting a little bit ahead of myself, but this is kind of sets up the question I'm going to ask you.
Okay.
I think this thing that scares me with Shedeur Sanders is his ceiling. But the thing that scares me with Cam Ward is his floor.
Yeah.
Like, I think Shedeur Sanders has a much higher floor, but a lower ceiling than Cam Ward.
I would agree.
But I would say this, and this comes from Amber 7, who is an all-star in the chat tonight.
Shout out to Amber.
Amber 7 has never, I don't
Amber
remember
7
in
been
the
before?
chat, no. But
come on back.
He
Thursday
or she,
nights, Amber.
They are really rocking in the chat. They say, personally, I think Shedeur will surprise a lot of people. He has fundamental mechanisms.
Oh, I love that.
And I think that is something that we both have agreed on since this whole college season even started.
Yeah.
Is that for me, Shedeur Sanders has been quarterback one because I feel like he is the most pro-ready out of the gate in terms of mechanics, ability to diagnose, read, all this kind of stuff.
He's a quarterback. He is a quarterback.
Yeah. He's not an athlete playing quarterback. He's not a wide receiver turned quarterback. Mm-hmm. None of that. Dude's a quarterback.
Plays the position.
And that's not a shot at Cam Ward or anything. I'm just saying dude's a quarterback.
Yeah. It's like some guys you watch and you just see it like that guy knows the position. He feels the position. He is the position.
So, in that sense, talk about what makes Shedeur Sanders, when you watch tape, say, that dude's a quarterback.
Yeah, it's for me, the big things are timing and ball placement. I know people are critical of the arm strength. We can get into that if you want to. I think that's a little overblown.
Let's keep the arm strength for a separate conversation.
Yeah, I think for me it is his willingness to extend plays with his legs, keep his eyes down the field. He's not one of my biggest concerns with him is his athleticism. And to me, it's a problem that he seems to play like he thinks he's more athletic than he really is. Something else we can unpack later. But for the strengths, it is really the timing and placement. Like like I said earlier about the screen game, like the offense flows through him. He is a facilitator, the football, goes through his reads.
A point guard.
He's a point guard. But he can make any throw that you need him to make. It's just a matter of the ball getting there. It's like times when he can establish his base, he's calm, cool, collected. He has some deep balls on tape, and I think that's kind of a misconception about him. People think that he just can't throw the ball 20 yards down the field. He can. It's just a matter of his process getting rushed. So for me, it's like you watch the tape, you see the timing, the placement, you see the footwork, like when the conditions are right. You see how he sees the field, his work over the middle of the field. He's not afraid to throw the ball over the middle. It's not like, we talk about with Cam Ward, like he loves specific throws. He's going to take those throws no matter what. I feel like the coverage matters for Shedeur, whereas I said with Cam last week, he throws no matter what the coverage is. Shedeur puts the ball in places where, to me, I watch and I think Shedeur Sanders knows exactly where that safety's coming from. He knows exactly where this cornerback is coming from. He knows the responsibility, and he puts the ball in a spot that attacks the weak spots in between coverage responsibilities.
So let's pause right there. The reason I want to pause because you put out a clip where he puts it right where it's supposed to be, and you got so many replies saying that would be an interception in the NFL. So go to @Stoney Keeley on Twitter, and you can probably find that. So at the end of the day, do you find that is not an NFL level throw, like what your armchair scouts say?
The throw is probably a different throw based on the coverage in the NFL.
Gotcha.
You know what
now,
I'm saying?
What do you mean by that?
So, like, the safety, if you respect the safety that's back there, maybe you don't throw that ball because you think.
So you think that he knew this comes down to tape study?
Yeah. Well, I think it's that. I think it's talent level, which I do think there is a concern. It's like, okay, how's he going to run away from NFL edge rushers? Like, is he going to have the same success from a timing standpoint, understanding when NFL safeties and cornerbacks can close the throwing windows? But I think that it's consistent enough on tape that he hits windows before they close, and he hits wide receivers in stride to think this is a read issue. And so if the receiver is in a position where Shedeur is not confident that he can get the ball to him before the safety gets there, I don't think he throws that ball.
I got a good question for you.
I don't think he throws that ball.
Okay.
But I think he can read where the safeties are at, and if it's open and if he knows he can get the ball there, he's going to take it.
So this is not the question I was just got excited to ask you about. Jackson, how far along are we on the stream, if you don't mind me asking?
56 minutes.
Okay, so we got some time.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's something I want to ask you based on what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
Will Levis threw a ball towards Jair Alexander, which Blaine says you should just never throw over to Jair. You should know that.
Shedeur has one of those throws.
Well, that's not what I was going to ask, so you just ruined that question.
Oh, well, shit. Okay.
I was going to say, because of that, I was focusing on the safety throw. Do you think that he threw it over there because of the safety? So let's just throw that question out there. I never asked that question, never led us down that path.
Okay. But I think that Shedeur understands timing, placement. He reads coverages, and he puts the ball in safe spots. So he knows that ball's going to be completed. So he completes it. I think if the coverage is different in the NFL, or if he doesn't have the same confidence that he can execute, he's not throwing the ball. He's taking the check down, which he proves that he's willing to do on the tape. And we're not talking about this interceptable ball. The other thing was people were like, that's a hospital ball. He's going to get his wide receiver kill.
I had a really great question. Then I asked Jackson that question. Then I asked the other question, and I lost it. Yeah. And it was a great question.
People said that throw. I got direct comments that said, I can't tell if this is a joke or not. You must be impressed easily. Like, this just like I just posted a clip. Like, this is a really good fucking throw. And then people are like, oh, Titans fans always going to they're going to scout based off 2 to 3 plays. I'm like, motherfucker, I've watched 7 fucking games. 7 games of this guy's tape. I picked a throw that I thought was a fun throw that people would like to see, and I posted it. I'm getting grilled for it. Okay,
so in the sense, let's go to now arm strength, because that is the big question mark around it. And, it's been brought up, Joe Burrow didn't have the greatest arm strength and all this kind of stuff. And listen, Tua is another guy, didn't have, kind of funny. They're both from the same draft class, by the way. But, I mean, arm strength can be a concern.
Yeah.
But as Brian Callahan has pointed out and many other people have pointed out, that anticipation and timing can make up for arm strength. So where are you at with the arm strength situation? And how many times do you find the deep ball to have the less desirable power that you would want on the NFL? Because remember, the hashtags are wider and everything like that.
Yeah. So I'm not as concerned with the arm strength. I'm really excited to see how he does at the combine. I want to watch him throw at the combine because it's really gonna test my theory that I think when he has time and can throw from a good base.
You go ahead. I'm writing this down so I remember.
No, I left my my walkie technique stuff. I think he's got a pretty decent deep ball. And there are shots in the tape that I watched. I've got a clip of one from the Baylor game. It's just an absolute moonball. But he had perfect conditions. Travis Hunter was open, heaves it down the field. It's perfectly fine. People post these clips of his arm strength, and like balls,
quote unquote arm strength,
balls hitting the dirt at the feet of the wide receiver, and
they should have saw Jalen Milroe here at the doing it 5 yards in front of him at the Senior Bowl.
You know, these balls just peter off and everything. And it's like you rewind it and you watch, and it's like him throwing off his back foot with his arm angle like this over the top. And that's something I don't think people talk enough about with Shedeur is like he's pretty willing to throw off his back foot too. I know people want to knock Cam Ward for that.
Yeah.
Shedeur Sanders does it quite a bit too. And he throws from uncomfortable angles, throws from uncomfortable positions because he's not fast enough to get away from edge rushers in space. So then he just throws the ball no matter where his feet are. I think he does that sometimes. And when he does that, that's where you see the stark contrast between he and Cam Ward, because Cam Ward can still hit some of those passes on arm talent alone. Jackson,
what a king.
Thank you so much.
What a king. Look at that.
We salute. But I don't think Shedeur's arm talent is so good that he can overcome those technical deficiencies. So for me, it's like, okay, well, protect him better. And maybe you get more consistent deep ball placement. I don't jive with this idea that he's just got a noodle arm and he can't throw the ball down the field.
So when the pocket's breaking down, obviously a big thing is he takes a lot of sacks.
Yeah.
And then now every sack has its own story. Every sack has its own fault line and all that kind of stuff. But first, before we get into this, before we get into taking sacks, when the offensive line is so bad and the pressure comes crashing down, how are his mechanics? Because what we're talking about with his footwork and his ability to navigate the pocket and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Because we talk about him having some of the best mechanics that you've seen, like that dude's the quarterback. How do those mechanics hold up in the face of pressure?
It's, not great. It is.
And let me be clear, a lot of quarterbacks are not great. That's why pressure completion percentages and all this stuff are effective.
There is a lot about him that, man, it feels like a guy that doesn't really understand his own limitations. And the way he's willing to.
So what limitations are you referring to?
Physical limitations.
So athletic limitations or height limitations?
Athletic limitations. Because it seems like he's willing to throw like off platform, off base, whatever you want to call it, footwork out of whack. But his presence in the pocket, to me, it does not reek of. We talk about Will Levis, right? And his awareness. At times it felt like he was oblivious back there. Didn't know what was coming and had no idea. They just didn't react to it at all. Shedeur at least reacts to the pressure. And it makes me think like, okay, he's aware it's coming. I feel like he thinks he can get away quicker than he actually can, because there's so many times on tape where it's like, you got to get the ball out just a split second sooner, and it's a throwaway. You live to fight another down.
So his ability to recognize that, even though that maybe he doesn't know how to resolve the situation, right?
Yeah.
He at least recognizes that pressure is there. His awareness,
to me, because of
awareness level, to put in Madden terms, is 90. Reaction level, I guess, would be 40.
It's like you can see it coming, but you've got to react to it quicker.
Yeah.
And
maybe he just doesn't know how.
You can't think that, I can just shake this guy and move if you're not athletic enough to actually do those things.
So first off, we're talking in a positive situation about him being able to recognize pressure.
I'm saying that
just so we know. The reason I'm clarifying that is because Mariko Johnson is like, we're just making shit up now, just talking bad about Shedeur, when we're actually trying to illustrate a positive.
I think it is an illustration of why so much of the concern over pressure to sack is overblown.
There you go.
The pocket presence, people talk about pocket presence. It's like, I don't think it's that he's unaware of what's happening. I think that there's two things that I think. One is, like I said, I think he thinks he's more athletic, or that he's athletic enough to get away from guys that he can't actually get away from. Two, I just wonder, and this is just a guess, right? Something that if I were a GM would try to hash out in the interview room. How much of it is, I'm just damn sick and tired of having somebody in my face constantly. I'm just going to hold on to this ball however long it takes to make a play. Does that make sense?
It's because, I mean, kind of how we talked about it last week is like Cam Ward and him both have the same issues.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah.
But what Shedeur Sanders does is keeps his eyes downfield trying to make a play. Cam Ward just runs.
Yeah. And in other words, if I'm Shedeur Sanders, like, am I really at fault if it's like I can't?
Would you rather have the guy that keeps his eyes down the field trying to pass the ball, looking for the big play or looking for a play?
Yeah.
Or would you rather have the guy that just bails on everything, the entirety of the play?
Yeah. I'm with you there. Because
but
to me,
you think he's sensing the pressure?
I think the way he reacts in the pocket to rushers approaching,
because this is a very unique thing to view, by the way. Because how many people? I don't think a lot of people think that he senses it.
Yeah, no, I get that too, and that's what I push back on. Is people look at the pressure to sack ratio.
Yeah.
People look at the
some people are
the sacks,
quote unquote film watchers that also say this too.
The sacks and stuff like that. I mean, there are some bad sacks on his tape where it's like, brother,
which is bad on everybody's tape. There's always those few sacks like that.
But the way he moves around and reacts to approaching pressure, to me, looks more like this is coming. I got to figure out how to get around this so I can still make a play. It's not like I'm looking to make a play and I'm just getting bombarded.
This Mauricio Johnson or Mariko Johnson, whatever you pronounce his name, they're having a hard time understanding what we're talking about.
I think people overblow the pocket presence issue.
Well, he's saying
that's
it's a horrible
O
line, and that's what he's saying.
Yeah,
but he doesn't understand that's what we're saying.
Yeah, that's what makes the evaluation so difficult, is because Shedeur had no run game and he was constantly fighting for his life. There's one play in, I think it was the Kansas game, where they were trying to set up a screen. They sent two offensive linemen out and a wide receiver. The wide receiver and left tackle converge on the same block, and then both just keep running past the guy. And the guy just walks up.
So they didn't run into each other like Dylan Radins and Peter Skronsky.
Well, no, but they didn't hit the block either. They ran right by the guy they were supposed to block, and I'm like, what the fuck is Shedeur supposed to do here?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of his tape that I can feel myself. I'm gonna have difficulty breathing. I'm raising my blood pressure. But there's so much of his tape. Should we talk about Frank
Gore?
Yeah. Oh, that'll send me to the hospital. There's so much of his tape that I watch, and I'm just like, what is this guy supposed to do? And that's where part of the projection comes in.
Okay, so let me ask you this.
Okay.
Travis Hunter, number 1 overall pick. You think he's a number 1 wide receiver?
I think he could be, yeah.
LeJontay Wester, really good tape.
Yeah.
Really good stats.
Yeah.
Will Shepard, Jimmy Horn, all these guys.
They exist, yes.
They exist. But at the end of the day, do we all just boil it down to two simple things, and one of them being very under-discussed and one of them being very discussed? Offensive line and a lack of run game.
Yeah, I think you could, pretty much. Because, I mean,
so
when he could get the ball to those guys, they made plays.
So
but it's just an inconsistent thing. It's like what I was talking about earlier. Is like you see him make one beautiful throw.
Yeah.
And then it's 20 plays later before you see that again because of these screens that are getting blown up because the tackles can't get to their block and these run plays that go nowhere.
So has Shedeur Sanders come around to the point of the draft cycle where he's now underrated?
I tell you this, like, saying he's not a first-round prospect in this class is just maddening to me.
Is it maddening or is that stupid?
Well, I think it's crazy.
Okay.
And it's
so we're not going to I'm trying to get you don't want to go stupid?
Yeah, because I'm trying to think. I can't remember. I might have friends that have him ranked pretty low.
Yeah, friends can be stupid.
I don't want to call my friends stupid.
All right. So we're going to call them insane.
I think it's crazy, and I think we are at a point now where, going back to what I said earlier, the perception of Shedeur and Dion, the Colorado program, and all this didn't do any favors in terms of his public perception. People want to hate him. I think we had this tidal wave of hate that hit him, and we're seeing it kind of on the draft side now, but I'm kind of like resisting the urge to join that because I'm still thinking like the tape is still the tape, the eval is still the eval. Like this guy has been worthy of a top 10 pick in this draft class for me the whole way. So
you have not wavered.
I have not wavered at all. I still like him as the better quarterback than Cam Ward.
Okay. Well, we'll get to that next week,
but I think we have gotten to the point where the wave of hate has like won and it's crashed down. And we are kind of at a point where I feel like there are a lot of people that are just overthinking the Shedeur Sanders eval.
So it's a hate undertow. We're all pulled into the hate undertow.
We're pulled into the hate undertow.
Okay, so there's a lot of people who will say that he's a yak merchant. Like he tosses the ball short.
He throws a lot of screens because that's how they got to move the chains.
He throws it short. He doesn't throw it on the middle of the field. He doesn't throw it deep, all that kind of stuff.
He does throw it over the middle of the field.
Yeah. I mean, not at a high rate, but he does. But the question becomes then, is the receivers getting yards after catch, again, kind of like the screen, kind of an overblown thing because you still have to make those throws. Oftentimes, in a situation, if they're getting yards after the contact, yards after catch, then that could be because he's making tough, difficult throws and someone's in that area and he's making quick decisions.
He's finding the open guy.
Okay.
He's hitting receivers in stride so that nobody has to slow down, change direction. He's setting his wide receivers up for yak. Now, does it help having guys like LeJohntay Wester and Travis Hunter? Absolutely.
Well,
and
guess what? I will say this. The NFL, the best receivers probably get yards after catch or are wide open.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
So I think there are instances where you watch the tape and he throws the ball 10 yards and it's taken 80 yards for a Travis Hunter touchdown. But I think there are also instances on tape where he puts a ball in the bucket 35, 40 yards down the field and the receiver doesn't make the catch or the receiver drops the ball. So how do you weigh those into his ball placement? Is he a yak merchant? I just don't. I know people like to say that, and it's easy to do with so much talent at NFL wide receiver or so much NFL wide receiver talent at Colorado. But I still think the offense has to flow through him. I still think he has to execute the throw. He has to see the throw to begin with. And he does it at a high enough level that he sets his wide receivers up for success.
Okay.
And he still hits deep shots in uncomfortable positions, but they're dropped or excuse me, they're dropped or fumbled.
Okay, so let's look at it this way now. One of the things when you're talking about this quarterback class, one of the names that keeps popping up is Jackson Dart. One of the things about Jackson Dart is that he does not scan the field, does not go to a second read very often. Everything is wide open. The questions of being under I'm with you.
We're cough drop boys.
Yeah, we're the cough drop boys. Being under center, is another situation. Reading defenses pre-snap. So that's where I really want to take this is pre-snap.
Yeah.
And post-snap.
Mm-hmm.
Diagnosing of defenses. Where do you think Shedeur lands in that?
I think pre-snap, man, I don't know because, I feel like he's post-snap, he's pretty good. But when you're talking about college offenses, I don't know how developed quarterbacks are these days, and I would put Shedeur in this category. I don't know if quarterbacks have developed the sense enough to start getting the pre-snap stuff down. I think a lot of offenses in college are kind of predetermined. It's like we talked about with we've talked about a little bit with Cam Ward last week, but a lot with Carson Beck. Is a guy that I told you, I was like, he's a spot thrower. He's just going to throw to a spot on the field regardless of what the coverage is, and sometimes they look like beautiful throws. Sometimes they don't. So it's difficult to get a really good read on that from my tape study anyway, because I do feel like there is a lot of I don't know how much pre-snap is affecting the play calling, if that makes sense. So, I don't know what he's actually looking at and determining, to go off of. It doesn't look like there's a lot of communication, changing protections, changing plays, that sort of stuff. And so I think that would indicate what I'm trying to say is, I don't know that he's very active pre-snap. But post-snap, once the moving parts are in place and things are moving around him, I think he's pretty good. I think he's pretty good at diagnosing, as evidenced by the throw that I posted on Twitter that got me grilled. It was he understood where that ball needed to be, when it needed to be there, and he threw it to a spot where only his guy could get it.
So Miami had 1,400 more rushing yards than Shedeur Sanders. Or than Colorado. 1,400 more rushing yards as a team.
Yeah, they were
had
pretty
a 1,006-yard rusher. Cam Ward only rushed for 336, which is 30 more than Shedeur Sanders. The only reason I bring that up is because someone in the chat earlier brought up the fact, and it's something that Brian Callahan has talked about with Will Levis and Mason Rudolph, when in those situations where everybody knows you have to pass. Well, the Colorado offense makes it seem like, damn, everybody knows you're going to be passing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So how much does that weigh into your evaluation where he's in a worse predicament, right? Situationally, game in and game out, these teams know two things. You're likely throwing the ball, and you're likely throwing it to Travis Hunter. So I just want to say that first off, because Travis Hunter has 15 touchdowns this year, even though everybody knew it was likely going to Travis Hunter.
Yeah.
And LeJonte Wester had 900-something yards, 500 to 700. I can't remember which one. I think it's 700 were yards after catch.
Yeah.
But that, again, everybody in the stadium knows that Shedeur Sanders is going to throw the ball because you do not have a run game. So how much should that factor into the evaluation?
I think it should be a bonus for him. I hadn't thought about that before, and that's a really good question.
Someone kind of brought that up, not necessarily, but someone in the chat had mentioned something like that.
People slam Shedeur for the BYU game, but it's kind of funny to watch the way BYU would just rush 4 because they knew our 4 can beat your 5. Your 5 sucks, so we're just going to rush 4. Sometimes we're going to drop one of those guys back, and we're only going to rush 3. And we're going to win, and we're going to make Shedeur move around, and he's going to have nowhere to throw the ball because we've just put 7 or 8 guys into coverage. And it was a difficult game for him because there weren't a lot of places to go with the ball, And that issue was
and everybody can tee off on your offensive line.
The issue was compounded because he was constantly having to move around outside of the pocket trying to make a play. But even in that game, and I've got several clips that'll be in the scouting report on Stacking the Inbox, even in that game, he's still hitting these throws, these well-timed, well-placed throws.
So all this to say, it really does sound like that based on what you had to say and what you're talking about and everything, I've got a low battery on my mic pack, if that even matters at this point.
I don't know. Is anybody even still listening?
Oh, yeah. Listen, the chat's still popping. I mean, we're right here in the room. Why do we need to hear? I guess only because I want to hear Jackson's grade of the show.
Yeah.
Again, I go back to you take in all this stuff, right? You take in the account that everybody in the stadium and every game knew that he was going to throw. There we go. Thank you.
Absolutely.
What the best fucking producer at 105.
He is a king. He's our MVP tonight.
Sorry, Bert, if you're listening. But Jackson.
Yeah, we're stuck, man.
We are stuck.
Oh, y'all are back.
We're back. Okay.
So we just were frozen. Okay. I think we were just frozen.
Potentially. I don't know what happened.
Okay. So in all this, I know we're going to have a Cam Shedeur episode coming up next week. So I don't really want to get ahead. But again, I do want to reiterate, what is the biggest weaknesses in Shedeur Sanders' game?
I would say, like Cam, you've got to figure out the footwork. I think there's a little bit of magic to Shedeur's game that he's not given credit for. And you got to kind of figure out, okay, is the off-base throwing, the willingness to throw off your back foot, that sort of thing, is that something you can coach out of him, or is it just a trait that he has that you're not going to be able to shake? And I think you've got to kind of get him to realize you've got to more urgently get rid of the ball, because you're struggling to get away from this Kansas defensive line. It's going to happen when you're going up against, the Philadelphia Eagles or something like that. Like, you've got to get rid of the ball quicker, or just protect the ball and take the sack. There's one thing I don't want to close the show without mentioning. It's that drives me fucking nuts watching him do this. When he bails from the pocket, when he goes out to the left, goes out to the right, when he steps up, goes forward, still looking to make a play with his eyes, it's one thing. He still gets caught, he still gets run down, and it's still, he's not elusive as a runner. But there are times when he bails out the back of the pocket, like turns and runs backwards. And I feel like every time he does that, it's like a 20-yard loss. So, like, you've got to get that sense of urgency in him. Like, you're not Superman. You're not going to be running away from NFL edge rushers. You've got to get rid of the ball quicker. And you've got to be willing to throw it away. Like, to me, that's the thing. Like, I see, like, you're reacting to pressure. You're just not reacting to it quickly enough. So we got to get that sense of urgency up.
Do you think that the sense of urgency and the stuff that you just talked about, the biggest weaknesses, are something that could be coached out of him the next level? Like, is that something that could be, like, not that Brian Callahan has to do it, but it really sounds like he needs to do it. But, like, is that something that normally you can see get better with the proper coaching?
Yeah, for sure. Because I don't think, like, the narrative that he's just blindsided by the pass rush, like, I don't necessarily agree with that. So I think, like, you can see him react to the rush coming. At that point, he should probably just throw the ball away. And instead, he holds on to it, trying to make a play, and it ends up being a sack.
Because that's kind of Will Levis-esque, right? And they didn't really coach that out of him.
Where I was going to circle back to was like, for Will Levis, it felt like a feel thing. Like he had no idea somebody was behind him.
Yeah.
He had no idea.
But you think that Shedeur does?
I think Shedeur does. I think Shedeur does, yeah.
Okay, so you're a big tape guy. You said it's all about the tape and all this kind of stuff. Why does the rap tape not matter?
Why does what?
The rap tape.
Well, it does matter.
It does,
and I like it.
You like it.
So
it's just terrible. It's just terrible rap, terrible music.
It's fine.
I mean, we just saw Kendrick Lamar put on a fantastic halftime show. We got the Wu-Tang Clan coming up. We got a Larry June album out with The Alchemist and all this stuff, and he releases that. It's just bad
all good.
timing. It's bad timing.
It's all good.
All right.
It's all enjoyable.
Next week, we will talk about Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. Who's the best fit for Brian Callahan? Who do you have as your number one quarterback on your big board? All that kind of stuff next week. You also will be on filling in for Blaine on President's Day this Monday, 1 to 3 on Cover 2. There you go. Boom, boom, boom.
Man, no, Amber just asked another good question in the chat. Like, why isn't Coach Pat teaching him that?
Yeah, that's true.
So maybe it is a trait.
Maybe it is.
Maybe that is a concern.
Or maybe Pat Shurmur's just like, screw it.
Yeah,
it's college.
I don't know. See, and that's what I say. Like, these are things you got to learn about the prospect throughout the interview process.
Jackson, how would you grade us?
I'm going to go B+ Yap Fest.
All right.
What do you say?
B+ Yap Fest.
Guess what? It died on me. This one died on me, so I didn't get to hear it.
Oh, man.
So, if 2 battery packs die on you, it is time to end the show.
How do you coach that out of a podcast?
I don't know. It's funny because we talked about, we did a little celebration at the bar. We toasted and everything. And I said, the show's gone really well. And he goes, yeah, we've only had really one hiccup outside that first show. And now we've had 2 battery packs die on me.
Yeah.
It's just how life works sometimes.
Hang on. Can we ask Eddie's question first? Rap videos or Mayo commercials?
I'll take rap videos all day long.
Rap videos, no doubt.
Mayo commercials. Other commercials are fine, just not Mayo commercials.
Yeah.
Other than that, Stoney Keeley, at Stoney Keeley on Twitter. Stackinginbox.com is where you can read the Shedeur Sanders report, probably coming out next week.
It'll be next week. Usually Fridays are going to be Film Friday, scouting report, but it's been a crazy week in my life, and I've got the video ready to go, but I haven't written the article and I haven't done the voiceover. So
there you go. Then you also have Sobros Network, National Movie Dispatch, and of course the Hot Read Podcast. Mm-hmm. I'm Zach Lyons, Cover 2, 1 to 3. Monday through Friday here. And then we got Jax behind the glass, who did a great job today. Got you some water and all that kind of stuff. Other than that, this has been Football and Other F Words, and you have just been effed.